And welcome back to the Morgan Streetman Show. You know, just before the break, we were playing some of the congressional testimony from Friday from former ICE Chief Tom Homan. And, you know, one of the probably most exciting parts of his testimony was when he really got into it. And I don't really think he started it, by the way. And you'll hear that in the clip. But boy, oh boy, did he finish it. He really got into it with Illinois Democrat Representative Jesus Chuy Garcia. And you'll see the line of attack that Chuy Garcia took against Tom Homan. And the basic line of attack is that you don't care about the children in the detention centers because they're not the same color as your children. Listen to this.
Mr. Homan, I'm a father. Do you have children? How can you possibly allow this to happen under your watch? Do you not care? Is it because these children don't look like children that are around you? I don't get it. Have you ever held a deceased child in your arms?
First of all, your comments are disgusting. I've served my country. I've served my country for 34 years.
I find your comments disgusting as well.
I've served my country for 34 years. And yes, I held a 5-year-old boy in my arms in back of that tractor trailer. I knelt down beside him and said a prayer for him because I knew what his last 30 minutes of his life were like. And I had a 5-year-old son at the time. What I've been trying to do in my 34 years serving my nation is to save lives. So for you to sit there and insult my integrity and my love for my country and for children, that's why this whole thing needs to be fixed. And you're the member of Congress.
We agree on that.
Fix it.
We agree on that, but I disagree. But I also disagree with your characterization of immigrants as prone to criminality.
People for 3 decades on this.
Gentlemen's time has expired. It's my time now.
Mr. Chairman,
it's my time.
The gentleman.
That's Jim Jordan.
Ripped off about 7 different questions designed to go at the character of Mr. Homan, and Mr. Homan should be given a chance to respond.
Absolutely. That's why I was banging, so that we could hear each person speak. I have been very courteous and very kind. Now, Mr. Homan, do you have something to say?
No one in this room has seen what I've seen in my 34-year career.
Very well.
No one has experienced what I've experienced. I've saw many dead bodies coming across this border. And you want to talk about the memo? This memo is one option to stop death. Not just about enforcing the law, stop death. If you want to legalize illegal immigration, good luck with that, because it's going to get a hell of a lot worse on that border. If you say, okay, from now on, there will be no consequence, no deterrence. It's not illegal to come to this country illegally. More families will come. 31% women would be raped. More children would die. We're a nation of laws. If you don't like it, sir, change it. You're the legislator. I'm the executive branch, and I've served my country honorably for 34 years. And I will not sit here and have anybody say that I don't care about children because you're not the same color as my children.
Ooh. Boy, oh boy, he was hot.
Yes.
You should have seen him, too. I mean, he looked like he was about to explode when he was given that response.
You know what's sad is you got guys like him working so hard to do the right thing, and then you got these people that come in there and just want to grill him like they are the criminals.
Sit there and snipe at him and impugn their integrity. Right. I mean, that's the most offensive part of it. You know, this guy, Tom Homan, who's the former director of ICE. Thank you, by the way, for correcting me, Pat George, as I hemmed and hawed around for the proper title.
Let him walk in his shoes for a week.
That's what he's saying. And look, he was a former NYPD guy for decades. So, you know, he's seen a lot more than they ever have and done a lot more for people, like on the spot, to actually help people who were in need, who were hurt, or who were victims of a crime or whatever. He's been there, as opposed to these, you know, armchair quarterbacks right. in Congress who just sit around and throw a bunch of insults at everybody. Now, you know, what I was really trying to do here is show you what's going to be the pattern of attack now. So listen up for when they're talking about you don't care about these children because they're not the same color as your children. Now, I want to correct myself just a little bit because I realize I misattributed the Ilhan Omar quote. The first one we played for you was when she was on Al Sharpton's show earlier this weekend. Okay, that's the mouth of the shark quote. Now, this quote is what she was actually saying at that Daily Kos event in, I believe it was New York, called Netroots Nation. Now, listen to what she says about you bunch of racist Americans who don't care about the immigrant children.
And instead of us saying, here is A, B, and C, we're saying there is zero option. And if you ever think that you have a chance, we're going to treat you worse than a dog. One of our members said to me, if there were dogs in those cages, every single member of Congress would vote to make sure that all of these cages didn't exist anymore. So we live in a society and govern in a body that might value the life of a dog more than they value the life of a child who might not look like theirs. And that is completely sad.
Did you hear it? You don't value the life of those children, you see, because they don't look like your children. So you're a bunch of racists. Just because you want to enforce the law, just because you believe those children never should have been brought here in the first place by, of course, responsible parents who wouldn't subject their children to ICE detention by sneaking across the border illegally into another country. And, of course, we know from the DNA tests that only about 60 to 70% of the family units that show up together actually even share the same DNA. So about a third of the people being brought into this country as children are not even with their parents. They've probably been rented out, as we've told you, we've heard, has been reported, is going on in the border towns because they know if you show up with a child, you get treated differently. Then you get accepted. Then you get put into the pool of potential, as AOC called it, legal asylees, even though the asylum rules require you to stop and ask for asylum in the first country you reach that's outside of your country. So for most of these people coming from Central America, that's Mexico. And also, if you want to apply for asylum in our country, you're supposed to come to a lawful port of entry to do it. We have a process for this. You don't just storm across our border, show up here, and say, okay, now I'm claiming asylum. I don't want to follow any of the rules in doing that, but I want you to refer to me as a legal asylee. Remember, all these people who have come have been trained by liberal lawyers who have been sent down there by groups like those funded by George Soros and others, and they've gone down there and they've taught these people what to say. They've taught them to say they're applying for asylum. They've taught them that if you come in family units, you're more likely to get across and be treated more favorably. They've taught them all these things because they want to break our system and overwhelm our system with these applications. And if you look at what they say behind closed doors, you'll see that that's really the plan that they have. It's not a plan about compassion or anything like this. This is a bald political stunt because they know they cannot win with their radical policies with the American voters that live here in this country now. So what they want to do is switch and get some new voters. They want to import a bunch of new voters and people who are going to be totally dependent on them for everything. Remember what Kamala Harris said in the debates? People want to know how we're going to put food on their table. Well, I say good, honest, hardworking Americans don't want to know how the government is going to put food on their table because they're smart enough to know the government doesn't put food on anybody's table. Only private industry incentivized through the ownership of private property. That is what has created the period of a huge amount of prosperity in this entire world. That one concept of private property is what's created prosperity, not government. It's the ability to own something yourself and to know that if you put your labor into something that it can be yours and you can actually benefit from your labor. And that encourages people to want to invest their labor and their ideas and their creative powers into projects. If they know that it's never going to be theirs and it's only going to be taken away, and no matter how hard they work or how innovative they are, they're going to get the same exact thing that their neighbor gets who doesn't do anything, who doesn't innovate, who doesn't work hard, then they are not going to, by and large, make the effort because there's no reward. So it's that system of private ownership and reward for hard work. That's the capitalist system. That's the free market system. That's what's responsible for almost all of the prosperity in our world. And these people want to upend it. They want to do away with it. They want to create a nation full of what amount to slaves. You're totally dependent on the government to provide for your every need. And when they know when we reach that situation, now the government owns you. When you're totally dependent on the government, it owns you. And those people are who the Democrats want to be their voters, the dependents.
Have we ever heard any talk, interviews, or opinions from the detainees where they put a microphone and said, how are you being treated? Has there been a lot of that out there, or any of it?
Well, I haven't seen a lot of it. We did see that one lady from Central America who was really upset with the food that the Mexicans were giving them for free at these various stops in the caravan. Remember, she said it was pig slop.
But I'm saying once they get on American detainee detention center, you've been here now a week. How has it been?
I have not seen those interviews. I have not seen interviews with people. I have seen visits to the detention centers, and yes, they are overcrowded at this time. But is that our fault? I mean, is it our fault that we don't have the facilities for this, what amounts to an invasion? No, it's not our fault. We're not required to have facilities for all these lawbreakers. If they went through a legal port of entry, they would not be admitted to this country, and we wouldn't have all this overcrowding. It's because they snuck in, because they first broke the rules. And keep in mind, folks, we're not asking them to do anything that's not required of us. Because let me tell you something. If you cross into Mexico illegally and they catch you, they're going to jail you. And they're going to deport you.
Yeah, see if you get any air conditioning, a blanket, or a decent meal there.
Yeah. Have you heard anything about Mexican jails? In Mexican jails, the families are required to provide for the inmates. So since you don't have a Mexican family, how are you going to get food and clothing and bed sheets or whatever you might need in jail?
Thank you for listening to the Morgan Streetman Show. We hope you enjoyed what you heard, and if you did, please click like and subscribe to help us out. And remember that we recommend that you exercise your brain at least once a week.